The pool of tears. How curious, cried Alice. Now I'm opening out like the largest telescope that ever was. Goodbye, feet. Because when she looked down at her feet, they seemed to be almost out of sight. They were getting so far off. Oh, my poor little feet. I wonder who will put on your shoes and stockings for you now, dears. I'm sure I won't be able. I will be a great deal too far off to trouble myself about you. You must manage the best way you can. But I must be kind to them, thought Alice. Or maybe they won't walk the way I want to go. Let me see, I'll give them a new pair of boots every Christmas. And she went on planning to herself how she would manage it. They must go by the carrier, she thought. And how funny it'll seem, sending presents to one's own feet. And how strange the address will look. Alice's right foot, ESQ. Hearthrug, near the fender. With Alice's love. Oh, what nonsense I'm talking. Just then her head struck against the roof of the hall. She was now more than 9 feet high. And she at once took up the little golden key and hurried off to the garden door. Poor Alice. She could only lie down on one side and look through into the garden with one eye. But to get there through the little door was more hopeless than ever. So she sat down and began to cry again. Shame on you, said Alice. A great girl like you. She had enough reason to say this. To go on crying in this way. Stop this moment, I tell you. But she went on all the same, shedding gallons of tears. Soon there was a large pool all round her. About 4 inches deep and reaching half down the hall. After a time she heard a soft pattering of feet in the distance. And she hastily dried her eyes to see what was coming. It was the White Rabbit returning, beautifully dressed, with a pair of white gloves in one hand and a large fan in the other. He was running in a great hurry, muttering to himself, "Oh, the Duchess, the Duchess. Oh, I'm so late. She will be angry." Alice felt so unhappy that she was ready to ask help of anyone. So, when the rabbit came near her, she began, in a low, timid voice, "Please, sir." The rabbit started violently, dropped the white gloves and the fan, and ran away into the darkness. Alice took up the fan and gloves, and, as the hall was very hot, she kept fanning herself all the time she went on talking. "Oh, how strange everything is today. And yesterday things went on just as usual. Maybe they changed me at night. Let me see, was I the same when I got up? It seems to me I can remember feeling a little different. But the next question is, who am I? Ah, that's the great puzzle." And she began thinking over all the children she knew that were of the same age as herself. "I'm sure I'm not Ada," she said, "because her hair is curly, and mine isn't. And I'm sure I'm not Mabel, because I know all sorts of things, and she, oh, she knows nearly nothing. Besides, she's she, and I'm I, and oh, how puzzling it all is. Well, do I remember all the things I learnt? Let me see. London is the capital of Paris. And Paris is the capital of Rome. And Rome, no. That's all wrong, I'm certain. It seems I'm Mabel, after all. I'll try and repeat a poem." And she began to repeat it. But her voice sounded strange. And the words were strange, too. How does the little crocodile improve his shining tail, and pour the waters of the Nile on every golden scale? How cheerfully he seems to grin, how neatly spread his claws, and welcome little fishes in with gently smiling jaws. I'm sure those are not the right words, said poor Alice, and her eyes filled with tears again. So I'm Mabel after all, and I will have to go and live in her little house, and have nearly no toys to play with, and oh, so many lessons to learn. No, I think I'll stay down here. It'll be no use their putting their heads down and saying, "Come up again, dear." I will only look up and say, "Who am I then? Tell me that first, and I'll think about it." "But oh," cried Alice with tears in her voice, "I really want him to come and put their heads down. I am so very tired of being all alone here." As she said this, she looked down at her hands, and saw one of the little white gloves on her hand. "How is it possible?" she thought in surprise. "It means I'm growing small again." She got up and went to the table to measure herself by it, and found that she was now about 2 feet high, and was going on shrinking quickly. She soon found out that the cause of this was the fan she was holding, and she dropped it hastily, just in time to avoid shrinking away altogether. "That was a narrow escape," said Alice. The sudden change frightened her, but she was happy to be safe. "And now for the garden." And she ran with all speed back to the little door, but, alas, the little door was locked again, and the little golden key was lying on the glass table as before. "And things are worse than ever," thought the poor child, "because one never was so small as this before, never. And it's too bad." As she said these words, her foot slipped, and in another moment she was up to her chin in salt water. "I'm in the sea," was her first idea. "I can go back by railway then." After her journey to the seaside, Alice believed that everywhere on the English coast there were several bathing machines in the sea, some children digging in the sand with wooden spades, lodging houses, and behind him a railway station. But she soon made out that she was in the pool of her own tears. "This is my punishment for crying so much," said Alice, trying to find her way out. "I will drown in my own tears. It will be strange, won't it? But everything is strange today." Just then she heard something splashing in the pool next to her, and she swam nearer to make out what it was. At first she thought it was a walrus or hippopotamus, but then she remembered how small she was now, and she soon made out that it was only a mouse swimming in the pool like her. "Shall I speak to this mouse?" thought Alice. "Everything is so out of the way down here that it is very likely it can talk. At any rate, there's no harm in trying." So she began. "Oh mouse, do you know the way out of this pool? I am very tired of swimming about here." The mouse looked at her, and seemed to wink at her with one of its little eyes, but it said nothing. "Perhaps it doesn't understand English," thought Alice. "Perhaps it's a French mouse. It came over with William the Conqueror."
Où est ma chatte?
Which was the first sentence in her French textbook. The mouse suddenly jumped out of the water, trembling all over with fright. "Oh, I'm so sorry," cried Alice hastily. "I quite forgot you didn't like cats." "Not like cats," cried the mouse indignantly. "How can I like them? Please don't be angry about it," Alice pleaded. "But what a pity I can't show you our cat Dinah. She is such a nice quiet creature," Alice went on, half to herself, as she swam lazily about in the pool. "And she sits purring so nicely by the fire. licking her paws and washing her face. And she is such a nice soft thing to nurse. And she's so good at catching mice. Oh, I'm so sorry, cried Alice again. Because this time the mouse looked really offended. We won't talk about her anymore. Indeed, cried the mouse, who was trembling down to the end of his tail. I won't talk on such a subject. Our family always hated cats, nasty things. Don't let me hear the name again. I won't indeed, said Alice, in a great hurry to change the subject of conversation. Are you fond of dogs? The mouse did not answer, so Alice went on eagerly. There is such a nice little dog near our house. A little bright-eyed terrier, you know, with such long curly brown hair. And it brings back things when you throw them, and all sorts of things. And it belongs to a farmer, you know, and it is so useful. It kills all the rats and— Oh no, cried Alice, I'm sorry. The mouse was swimming away from her as hard as it could. So she called after it. Dear mouse, please, come back again, and we won't talk about cats or dogs. When the mouse heard this, it turned round and swam slowly back to her. Its face was quite pale, and it said in a low trembling voice, Let's get to the shore, and then I'll tell you my history, and you'll understand why it is I hate cats and dogs. It was indeed time to go, for the pool was getting quite crowded with the birds and animals. There were a duck and a dodo, a lorry and an eaglet, and several other curious creatures. Alice led the way, and the whole party swam to the shore.
Вам нравится учить английский с нами? Тогда подпишитесь на наш канал, чтобы не пропустить новые видео. И не забудьте поставить лайк. До новых встреч!